What's up, guys? My name is Rising, and the Season 10 of COD Mobile is now live. And with the new season, I'm happy to announce the commencement of a brand new series on the channel. Welcome to The Current State Of, a series that'll be a little different from my regular gun guides. Here, we're not just talking about raw stats and builds. Instead, we'll be taking a deep dive into the core aspects of the game, be it weapon classes, perks, equipments, score streaks, or even COD as a whole, and breaking down where they stand right now, what problems they're dealing or facing, and ultimately covering how healthy they actually are in the current state of the game.
Think of this as a reality check for CODM. What's working, what's broken, and what needs fixing, all from an analyst's point of view. And starting off the series, today we'll be diving deep into the current state of shotguns in COD Mobile. Across every other first-person shooter title, shotguns have always been arguably the hardest class to balance. On paper, the idea sounds simple: insane close-range damage and useless at long range. But in practice, it's way more complicated than that. See, a shotgun's entire identity relies on one single playstyle: getting close enough to your opponent to land that one devastating shot. And the moment you tweak any stat, the whole weapon's balance shifts dramatically. With this shift, the gun can either be extremely overpowered or insanely underpowered. That's what I call the shotgun paradox. But before going on to all that discussion, let us have a brief look into the existing shotguns in COD Mobile and see which ones are the best in the game right now.
Based on performance, shotguns in this game can be divided into two types: the spammable ones, which include the semi and fully automatic shotguns, and the non-spammable ones, which consist of the pump and lever action shotguns. So first we'll be covering all the pump and lever action shotguns and compare the three most important stats. That is, its effective one-shot range, minimum number of pellets required to hit, and the rate of fire. And as we can see, the BY-15 has a much better effective range. However, it requires 7 out of 12 pellets to hit in that range to achieve a one-shot kill, which is not possible all the time. And its minimum effective range being just 4 meters, the BY thus remains as a subpar option. The KRM is a straight-up upgrade to the BY with a slightly slower rate of fire, which doesn't matter if you slide immediately after getting a kill.
The HSO is quite interesting because on paper it seems to have the worst range out of all of them. However, you just need to land 4 out of 15 pellets to achieve that potential, which is much easier. Even though the rate of fire is the slowest out of all the shotguns, its lethality makes up for it and is arguably the best shotgun in the game right now. The Argus is basically a sniper with a limited range, and at longer ranges you need to land all 8 of 8 pellets to achieve a one-shot kill, so your best interest should be in ADSing all the time. The base VLK Rogue is pretty much useless. However, when you equip Dragon's Breathe, now you need just 4 pellets to land on the enemy, regardless of range, and with the afterburn damage you can get an instant kill. Also, it has the fastest rate of fire for all of the guns mentioned here, so follow-up shots are much easier to land. However, it requires some practice to master it. R9, on the other hand, is the most unique one out of all, as it is a double-barrel pump shotgun with a great 14 meters of 2-shot range with a very quick 200 millisecond time to kill. This alone makes it arguably the second best shotgun.
And with the lethality out of the way, let us quickly have a look on the other important stats, such as ADS and hipfire spread, sprint out times, sprint speed, and the magazine capacity. Excluding the Argus, the KRM has the best ADS spread, while the BY takes the spot for hipfire spread. HSO and VLK Rogue have the fastest sprint out times, and the HSO having the fastest sprint speed. Combined with its sheer lethality, the HSO can therefore be considered as the best shotgun for its pure one-shot killing potential. The Argus is also not a bad option if you master it properly. Same goes for the R9, which has a slightly lower skill ceiling than the Argus. But that's all for the base weapons. Now, if we kit them properly, most of those stats get modified. I won't go through all of the builds unlike my gun guides, and we'll just hover over them.
Having done with the builds, let us now compare them. And to no surprise, the HSO again stands out to have the best one-shot potential with minimal pellets to land.
The R9, on the other hand, can now effectively 2-tap to a very impressive 19 meters. And you can see for the other stats as well. The HSO has the fastest sprint speed, which makes it ideal for an aggressive playstyle. I'm not comparing every single weapon, so feel free to pause the video and see for yourself any other stat you'd like.
But having done with the pump and lever action shotguns, let us now cover the automatic ones. These weapons are not so distinct from one another, whose main objective is to spray and pray at close ranges and hoping to kill the enemy without requiring proper aim. They tend to have a much lower skill floor than the former category we discussed just now, and frankly speaking, all of these have much less practicality than the true one-shot shotguns. The HS-2126 is a 4-round burst shotgun with a considerably high burst delay. The Striker Echo and the Jak-12 basically does the same job, each having different rate of fire values. So it's better to use the Sleg rounds on the Echo because it got a pretty sizable rate of fire buff this season, and the Dragon's Breath rounds on the Jak-12, which actually turns it into a top-tier spammable shotgun thanks to its afterburn damage, bypassing Flat Jacket and Dauntless.
And finally, let us dedicate a couple minutes to the brand new weapon which was added this season, the Einhorn Revolving Shotgun, which technically falls in the later category of spammable shotguns. In a few minutes, you'll understand why this might be the worst weapon that was ever added in the history of COD Mobile. For starters, this has the worst range out of all of the guns mentioned here, and also requiring a lot more pellets to hit to achieve a kill. It has moderate ADS spread, but unlike other shotguns, there is no means to boost it by attachments. The only good aspect of it is its hipfire spread, but if you take the recoil into account, well, the spread now becomes literally meaningless to talk about. It also has the worst sprint speed out of all other shotguns, and on top of that, it has a 5-round magazine. And if we consider the reload time, I have nothing to say here. It is so painfully slow that in a lot of cases, you're just better off dying and respawning, and you'll be back in the fight faster depending on the map you're playing on. Honestly, I do need to have a talk with the person who was in charge of balancing this weapon particularly.
But the base weapons out of the way, now let us compare them with attachments on. I'll quickly hover over all the builds so that you can have a look. There is nothing outstanding to compare here, so feel free to pause the video and have a look on any stat that you'd like to see.
But with that, we're done with the comparison for all of the shotguns. As far as what we've seen, the winner for the non-spammable goes to the HS-0405, with the second place going to the R9. And for the spammable ones, the Jak-12 takes the #1 spot. For those who are wondering about the Argus, surely it is a good weapon, but the skill gap is way too high to use it than using other conventional shotguns. The only underrated option that I consider worth trying out is the VLK Rogue with Dragon's Breath, but that requires some effort to master.
And now that we've broken down the numbers and compared every shotgun in the game, let's talk about the real subject of the video. Where do shotguns actually stand in the game right now? And honestly, it is a mess. On one side, you've got weapons like the HSO, the R9, or the Jak-12, which feel borderline broken, but everything else? They're either painfully inconsistent or straight up garbage. Guns like the KRM or the BY-15 just don't hold up anymore. And even the Argus, which, even requiring a higher skill gap, is basically a worse DMR. And what about the spammable ones? Well, in most scenarios, they're just hit marker machines, requiring you to dump out the entire mag just to kill a single enemy.
So on one hand, most of the shotgun category seem to just sit in the arsenal and collect dust. And on the other, there are a few of them which are extremely overpowered. And there's a valid reason why it is so. It all boils down to the overall weapon balancing of the game, which right now is completely off the rails. The time to kill in the current meta is so fast that guns like the USS-9, Odin, and the Type 63 can melt you before you can even react. And what is the easiest way to counter such fast time to kill? A weapon with instant time to kill. Since they are not able to nerf those aforementioned weapons, they had to buff shotguns in order to counter them with an instant 0 milliseconds time to kill. These weapons can end the fight before the enemy even realizes that they were one to begin with. And with the recent buffs to the shotguns in the past year or so, their one-shot consistency has risen up a much greater height than ever before. It is shocking to see that few of them have better range than most of the SMGs, which doesn't make sense at all.
There are two main factors that govern its ease of use. Firstly, its one-shot nature doesn't demand recoil control. And secondly, their pellet spread ensures that you just need to hit a certain minimum number of pellets in order to achieve the one-shot kill, which is 4 in the case of the HSO. There's one common debate that shotguns require precision, but that's not entirely true, because shotguns in this game have an insanely strong aim assist compared to other weapons. All you have to do is aim in the general direction of the enemy, and the game will take care of it. So all these times you thought your aim was good? Nope, it was the game aiming for you.
But again, I can't complain about it too much, as shotguns are required to at least counter those ridiculously unbalanced meta weapons. The most common way that seemed to appear in mind in regards to counter shotguns is just to stay out of its range. But that's the same as saying not to counter them at first place. On top of that, the current state of respawns indirectly make you play in close quarters. But that's for another video. Not to mention, shotguns are in fact one of the most beginner-friendly weapons in the entire game, if you can choose which ones you want to play with. This includes all the factors that I mentioned earlier, so even a newcomer who cannot track or aim properly can pick a shotgun and do reasonably well. But with the rants out of the way, how do you actually fix this mess? How to make shotguns relevant without making them broken? First off, stop adding more and more shotguns in the game. Even though we got only 2 shotguns this year, both of them fall subpar to better existing options in the game, especially the one that got added this season.
Second, reduce the aim assist from all the shotguns so that the user requires at least some aim to play with it.
Third, increase the minimum number of pellets to hit higher than what it is right now so that you can at least claim that, hey, I actually aim properly to ensure my kill and I deserve it. Also on these lines, I'd suggest a tighter ADS spread so that it feels more rewarding than hip firing all the time.
Fourth, make sure that Dauntless and Flak Jacket can reduce the effect of Dragon's Breath rounds. And finally, the most important one, fix the overall weapon balancing. And with the other 4 adjustments, this will indirectly make shotguns a little less dangerous to play against.
Because honestly, this class deserves better. It is supposed to be one of the most skill-dependent and risky playstyles in the game. And nothing is more satisfactory than achieving your kills with a little skill involved in it. So yeah, that's the current state of shotguns in COD Mobile. In short, most of them are pretty much pointless to use, but a couple of them are way too overpowered that they deserve to be. But I like to be optimistic. Maybe one update, one rework, or one smart tweak could finally bring them back into balance, with the overpowered mechanics tuned down a little bit and adjust other shotguns to keep up with the top tier weapons.
But anyways, that is going to wrap it up on the first episode of this brand new series. If you enjoyed this breakdown or disagree with my take, feel free to drop your thoughts in the comments down below. And since this was my first ever video with a departure from my usual gun guides, I admit that there are a lot of room for improvements. So if you have any suggestions regarding the inclusion of any section, or in fact a better way to organize the topics, I'd highly appreciate if you comment down below. And if there's any other category or mechanic you want me to cover next, then let me know as well. Join my Discord server to gain access to builds for all of the weapons as well as other analysis or Q&A that I've done. Make sure to subscribe and leave a like on the video if you want to see future in-depth analysis and contents, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.